Hi, welcome back to Follet, the video book. Today's installment is the second part of chapter 17, and unaccountably, it's appropriate for every single person that you know. Think of it as a New Year's present. Get everybody involved in this one. You can read it aloud, you can read it to yourself, you can read it to friends, you can read it in a bus station. It doesn't make any difference. It's all okay. Trust me. If I ever steered you wrong, that's correct. I have not. Okay. So if you're ready, here we go. This is back to Follet. Okay. They walked in. An elderly couple had claimed the booth by the door and barely gave them a glance, the man reading a newspaper and the woman texting or playing a game on her cell phone. A dumpy middle-aged man with a tonsure-like bald pate and pale pink jowls chatted with an African-American waitress wearing a white apron and gray uniform that matched her tightly permed hair underneath a hairnet that had seen better days. Follet and Meri sat at a table just behind the large man. They each took a menu from the little chrome rack that was soldered to the dark green aluminum napkin holder. They had plenty of time to look over the carte du jour before the waitress came to them with stainless steel silverware rolled up inside a paper napkin. "What'll you have?" she asked, busily chewing a wad of gum that made her cheek bulge out like she was part chipmunk. Meri was braver than Follet. "2 slices of green tomato pie, please, and 2 cups of coffee." At the mention of the pie, the waitress' estimation of her diners went up several notches. "You're in for a treat, honey," she told Meri. "Most folks don't know about green tomato pie, and thems that do can't get enough." "Green tomato pie?" Follet asked. "It's a buttermilk crust baked in bacon fat with a sweet filling that Southern folks made when they got tired of apple pie. You'll like it, or I'll eat yours," she told him. A few minutes later, the waitress brought the pie and coffee and waited for Meri's reaction. Meri cut herself a big piece and put it into her mouth. Sweet tomatoes, bacon fat, butter, lemon peel, cinnamon, and sorghum, right? I had an auntie who lived in Virginia, just on the Carolina border, who made this every summer when we came to visit. "Got good taste and some good memories, honey," the waitress smiled and said, "Glad you like it." Meri had been wolfing down the pie as the waitress spoke, and now she said, "Actually, ma'am, could I please have another little piece, about half of this one? I don't think that I'll get to taste this again soon." "I'll get half a piece to you right now and put the other half in a little box so you can have a snack later on." "Perfect," Meri said. The pie was much better than Follet had expected. He and Meri finished their coffee. The waitress brought the little box of pie along with the check, and Follet paid while Meri washed up. When Meri returned, it was Follet's turn. When he came out, Meri was talking to the waitress, and it seemed like they had known each other for years. "Thanks again, Elaine," Meri called back as she and Follet walked to the door. When they had gotten back into the car, Follet turned to Meri and said, "I can feel a call just south of here. Would you come with me, Meri, please? Not for the work, but just to be with me?" Meri looked deeply into Follet's eyes for a long minute. "Yes," she said. "A whistling woman and a crowing hen never comes to a very good end." Follet pulled out and headed toward Route 15 and then south. Meri turned on the radio, and WINC reminded them where they were headed. "Brothers and sisters, if you're coming to New Orleans, don't wear no flowers in your hair. We're not that kind of town. But travel safely and remember, tu peux pas matière de revers. We'll see you all soon in the city that time forgot." "Tu peux pas matière de revers?" Follet asked. "It's an old song, late 30s, I think, by the Thibodeau Boys. You can't stop me from dreaming. Pretty appropriate for what's coming," she said. And a chunky little country tune that had a lot of Mama Don't Allow, paired with a fiddle and a slightly nasal Cajun voice, filled the caddy. "Il est sur ton visage des promesses la chaque seconde." And when the song ended, Follet asked, "What does it mean?" Meri explained, "We have a right to dream. When it takes me, nothing can stop me. You know, it's almost like a battle cry you can dance to." They drove along in silence for a few minutes, and then Follet turned right onto Bothgowan Road. As they had driven south on Route 15, the road had been bordered by pine forests, but Bothgowan Road soon gave way to a lowland prairie. There were hawks circling in the clear blue sky, and high above them, eagles. On the horizon, Meri spotted a row of trees, and as they got closer, she realized that they could only be one kind, bald cypress. Hung with Spanish moss, they might have been growing there for 1,000 years. Follet slowed and pointed. "A pileated woodpecker," he said. Meri grinned and then saw a different one. She pointed. "What's that one, Follet?" "It's either a hairy or a downy woodpecker," Follet guessed. "I can't quite tell from here." Follet let the caddy slow to a crawl and roll down his window. He could smell the water just ahead, and he could just smell a wood fire. He scanned the sky and found a wisp of smoke rising through the trees about a quarter mile ahead and to the right. And sure enough, about 100 feet further along the road, there was a mailbox next to a dirt driveway leading back into some trees. Follet pulled in and found a wide spot. He pulled the caddy out of the way behind a big magnolia and turned off the car. Follet got out and motioned for Meri to follow. She opened the car door, got out, and walked over to Follet. He took her hand and led her down a wooded path. Up ahead, about 20 feet from a wooden dock, sticking out into Bayou Cocodrie, was a little Creole cottage. The little house sat up on brick piers and had a covered porch across the front with a whitewashed door on the right side and 2 windows at the middle and to the left. The roof was gabled with a brick chimney sticking up out of the middle of the roof's peak. The front walls of the house were whitewashed bousselage, but the rest of the house was unpainted clapboards. And asleep in a double-wide rocking chair on the porch was a straw-haired blonde woman. Her long, straight hair fell down her back all the way to her ass like a cascade of sunlight. The rocking chair was a Creole chair with a straight back and cowhide seat with the hair still remaining on the hide. It was homemade with a hickory frame and rockers and ash slats at the back. The woman was wearing gray sweats and a teasing glimpse of a black thong at her right hip, a gray t-shirt with the sleeves cut off that showed a bit of her tummy. Her arms were tight and muscled with tan lines that showed that she spent a lot of time in the sun. The contrast between her pale skin and her tanned skin was thrilling. Meri walked up to the steps, up to the porch, sat down and said, "Come on, Laurie, laissez bon temps rouler." Follet looked at her. "You know her name?" "We all know our dreamers' names, Follet, and since you invited me to come along today, I know her name too." And as Follet realized that he did know Laurie's name, and it felt to him as though he had known it forever, her dream began.